pronouns and how they dress are important in their identity. When I don't see them,
Even in this bout of recovery, get to real stories, real recovery. I am Kat, and I'm on the road of recovery.
My name is Jon Robinson. I'm from Medina, Ohio, and I am a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorder and mental health disorder. And today I am a father, I'm a husband, homeowner, and get to work in the recovery space.
Jon, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come here to Hope today and share your experience with us. We really greatly appreciate it. It's good to see you again.
I'm
too.
not here enough at Hope.
No,
so
I know, not at
that's
all.
what they say.
I get that. So I want you to describe your childhood.
I grew up in a typical upper middle class home in Middleburg Heights, and had two parents and a sister, and my family were immigrants from Italy, or half of them were. So we had a very rich cultural undertone and bilingual home at times, and grandma lived with us and all of those things. Very, very conservative Christian upbringing, lots of church, and I was adopted as a baby. So I think for me, I never really felt like I fit in anywhere, even growing up. And it felt really obvious to me because I had that knowledge of, I'm not blood relatives to these other people, and growing up with that was a challenge. No one is in recovery in my family. There is mental health disorders. At the time growing up, I don't know if they were diagnosed or treated or untreated, but I grew up in a home where there were mental health issues going on, and you kind of grew up on your tiptoes a little bit. I think I've talked to a lot of people about this, and it's kind of that undertone of you never know what you're getting into or what you're going to get. And as a parent now, I understand a little bit more about controlling my responses to my children. So I can only imagine how it really was with me, growing up. But other than that, everything was pretty standard.
Okay. So I want you to go into your first use. So what was that kind of like? And going into adulthood and things like that.
I started with depression when I was about 13, 14 is really when it started to bubble up. And it was very musical. I learned how to play music in the church. That's something I'm deeply grateful for, because that got me through a lot. But I just started to have this inner turmoil, and I couldn't put a name to it. I really honestly think, and I've talked to my stepson about this, that video games were the first thing for me. Yeah, and I had my first drink when I was 18 at a friend's house, and I knew right then, that was different even than smoking weed for me. That was a whole new thing. Once that started, I felt like I had clicked into this ultra rebellion. I had 2 beers and I'm this bad kid now, right? Because in where I grew up, those were the bad kids, right? And so then it was prescription pain medicine and anything I could get my hands on. But the drinking for me, I knew that was it.
So when did you start to feel like your addiction was becoming problematic?
Oh, man, I've been in recovery for 13 years, so I got sober when I was 21. So I was a fast and furious kind of person. I made it out of high school, and youth group kids went to college. I went to the fire academy and paramedic school. First point of entry into alcoholism for me. And then I had this whole new set of friends, and a lot of them were still like from the church, but they were all older, and so they were, 21, and I'm 18, 19, and I started drinking heavily. It started weekly. And again, underage, like I didn't have access, right? Like right. I only knew those guys, and so I would do everything we could to like hang out, but it became to the point that for me, it was not about like having a good time anymore. It's just about like how quickly can I get unresponsive.
What was John, I'd like you to describe the lowest point of your addiction.
April 22nd, 2011 was that like 2 a.m. puking, like every time it was just puking, like sick, and like what, you wake up the next day and you're like, why? And then you just go right back to it. But that was the last one. After numerous attempts of saying, hey, I'm gonna stop, or I'm gonna cut back. And that was 21. I was 21 and 8 weeks before I entered recovery. So I think the low point was just that it was like this self-actualization of like, okay, all these things that this counselor has been planting, all these seeds, right? Coupled by just like embarrassment of my family and just this inner turmoil, like I need to do something different, and I cannot do this by myself.
So I'd like you to share a time when you contemplated seeking help during your active use and what held you back.
I wasn't ready, and honestly, like it was so entwined in the church I was in, like I wasn't ready for all of that to happen.
Could you describe the moment that you decided to seek help?
Yeah, I remember I had we were just going out for a few, right? And it was way more than that, and that was, I couldn't even count how many times that had happened. Yeah, I remember I saw my counselor, I think it was like at church or something. I just said, hey, like I'm ready now. And then like it was, okay, we're gonna see you Tuesday at this place in this room at this time. And like I was there, and I did not want to be there. And my counselor was there too, because she like ran the thing, and like she was stood in the back like by the doors, because she knew I was gonna like escape, right? But I didn't. I showed up. Nice. Yeah, and I stayed.
Yeah.
Still here.
Yeah, still here. Can you describe your pathway of recovery?
I went from very rigid faith-based 12-step to this entire massive spiritual journey based off of some events that happened at work. I was, 12-step recovery, faith-based, things were good. I married and kids, and like I got all of the things that they say you're gonna get. Great job. I became a flight paramedic. Started flying in Central Ohio. Still in recovery, doing all the things. Marriage, life, kids, sponsor, steps. I mean, there were some hiccups there when you get all that stuff and you become a dad overnight with my stepson. I moved, I got married, I became a dad, and I got a new job as a flight paramedic in like a 4 or 5 month window. And things were great. Like it was like, man, like I've reached this point early in my career that like I'm doing other things administratively. Like I don't have to like be on the front lines as much, right? Sure. And then in January of 2019, we crashed, and they all died. And like I wasn't there, but I was on shift. I was working a 48-hour shift because we were supposed to go to Florida. So I was stacking my days, and they saw them at 2 a.m. in our hangar, and then at around 7:30, 8 in the morning, they were missing, and then later that morning they were dead, confirmed. And like, I think in that moment, like my career died. It really did. It crashed. It crashed with my friends. And that was something like I didn't know. I didn't know in the moment like how big this would be. Going to my meeting and like there's like 60 dudes there just like crying. You know, like I it's unmanageable in those moments. And you know what? The guys in the rooms were there, and like that's what it's all about. So you go to what you know, I think, when you're trying to wrap your head around some of those things. And what I knew and what I grew up with, I couldn't connect the dots anymore. It was not making sense. It did not compute. And I acknowledged that I had to connect to something, but it wasn't what I knew. You know, I get on people and like, oh, great day to be sober. Oh, at least you're sober today. That's not it for me anymore. You know, like that's not it. So the spiritual journey, various forms, yoga, meditation, all of those things.
I was told the day that you find out what your higher power is the day you die. So
Yeah,
it's a journey the whole time.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to describe any stigma that you faced in your recovery, whether it's from family, friends, working relationships.
I think being young, you know, starting the journey young, there was a whole lot of people that were like, what? You know, like you're 22 years old. So there was a lot of that. And I was like very selectively sharing about, you know, where I was. And that was early on. And I mean, with my career, like things just transpired and I got, you know, asked to be involved at Kathy's house. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. I'm in recovery. I'd like to give back. Like, you know, who doesn't want to run a recovery house when you're in recovery, right?
Describe a feeling that you've received in your recovery that was not there.
I think just being at peace with not having all the answers.
Can you talk about your mental health and your recovery?
Yeah. It's been tough. Things bubbled up big time last year. Yeah, it's all about self-care. It's all about self-care now. And it's really, really easy to hold on to this like recovery thing. You get 13 years sober and like, I'm good, right? And like, I don't think about drinking, no desire to. You know, if it's in front of me, it's a non-issue.
You hear a lot of stories of people talking about the mental health piece in recovery and how there's still a little bit of stigma.
You're right, because there is this like, I don't know, I don't want to say it's naive, but for people who don't have that, it's like, I'm sober.
Yeah.
Go to AA.
Yeah.
I got all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's a good day to be sober, man. And I look back at them some days, and I'm like, I don't give a shit.
Right. We still have issues, and when we're sober, and you know, we hear stories. This one gentleman, like 30 years, you know, clean, and he lost his daughter to addiction, and then he lost his grandkid to addiction, and like all of this stuff like happened in his life. And you know, you ask him like, how did you stay sober? And he goes, it wasn't about that. Right. It wasn't. It was about my mental health and taking care of myself. And yeah, it's good stuff.
And I think we need to do better at that. You know, because there are chemical imbalances that you could have $1 billion and the greatest things and all these relationships and like I deeply love my family and like that's the issue, right? Is that for me, I got to the point where like I did not want to die, but my brain wanted to kill me, and that was the turmoil. And I think that's the same thing with like the drinking. Like I did not want to drink anymore.
Yeah.
but my brain wanted to.
Yep.
And that's what was hijacking the thought process. Both sides of things. And that happened at year 12 and a half.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Whoa.
Right.
Yeah.
So what have you learned from your recovery?
Man, it's so good to sit and just think and like to think back on all of it, you know, and look back and like remember when they first said like, hey, like it'll get better. And like each year it progressively has definitely gotten better and I think more solid, even though there's been like very mental health and like things going on. But I think when you're able to look back at the journey, you can really understand like, oh shit, they were right. Like this is a journey, and like you are going to wake up one day and have a week and 2 and 4 and months and a year and multiples of years, and like that is going to happen if you stick with it. And so I think now it's just that like I'm excited to kind of see what happens next.
So why do you continue your pathway? What gives you motivation?
Well, that's interesting. I think it's difficult for me, and I don't know how you feel about it, but my pathway is my job now. To continue my personal journey, it's because like to drink is to die. That's very simple. That's where I was when I stopped. That is where I will be if I go back.
I think it's really great to bring that up because I think, and Stephanie was talking about people in having people with lived experience. I think people who have lived experience see those wins easier than people who don't have it because they're looking at outcomes, how often this is coming, how often this is happening. So I appreciate you bringing that up. All right, so I want you to look into the camera and I want you to share some inspiration and hope for those who are still struggling. So you're talking to somebody just coming into the rooms.
Yeah, I think recovery is a journey. It's fluid. What works today might not work next week, and like there's no way that you're gonna know any of that stuff. You have to figure it out, and like you just gotta be okay with figuring it out, and have people in your corner that are open-minded to a lot of different things.
Jon, we're so grateful that you took the time out of your day to come and talk with us. We know that your story is going to help others and help reduce stigma, humanize addiction, spread awareness, and inspire hope.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.